On June 28th, 1936, our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, wrote a paper, and he titled it The Principle of Identity. And I'm going to share a piece of that with you to start our lesson for today. And as I typically do in introing Mr. Fillmore's words, I want to just say again that you will hear in his writing the reference to the male pronouns throughout, which was just the style of writing at that time. And none of us believe for a moment that Mr. Fillmore was speaking and writing only, specifically and literally to men. His message was always with the intention of embracing all of humankind. And so that's the spirit in which I invite you to receive his words this morning. And so he wrote, "The central core in every man is I am, which has power to look within and identify itself with the realm of ideas, or look without and identify itself within the realm of forms. The man who looks within and identifies himself with the essences flowing in the ether and the unfettered ideas flying in the unbounded spaces develops dominion, power, and authority over mundane things. When man has attained a certain identity with the realm of ideas, he spiritually discerns that there is a kingdom where all ideas are so related that there is perfect agreement and unity in purpose and achievement. Jesus called this realm of harmonious ideas the kingdom of the heavens. When man discerns this realm of perfection, he eagerly desires to enter it, and he makes strenuous efforts to harmonize and unify his thoughts to the end that he may have peace of mind, health of body." The central core in every person is I am. If we envision a race where we often see a banner at the end of it with the words finish line across it, those words from Mr. Fillmore would be on the banner to which we are going to be approaching today. They are words that first could encourage us to remember who we are. We're going to see where they can also perhaps help us to redefine and choose a new idea of what home is for us. And it will show us how our divine will, a power contained within Unity's teachings of the 12 powers in which we are honoring this month, how it can help us get there. So first, let me ask you a question. Have you ever set out to find yourself? Perhaps more than once over the course of your life so far. And sometimes we enter into this kind of experience when we feel lost in some way. Sometimes some of the descriptive words we might use is we feel like a fish out of water, or we see ourselves as being the black sheep of our family. We can have that question, who am I? It can show up in our careers. It can show up within our family and social dynamics. It can show up especially, I believe, when we are in a dedicated, committed relationship with another person. And I know that I've asked myself that question in all three of those particular scenarios, and I've asked that question of myself more than once in each of those three scenarios over the years. And I've learned that it is not all that uncommon for everyone around us to question why we are questioning. Because very often people around us think they know exactly who we are. But when it comes right down to it, no one can ever truly know our hearts. And as it was for me, there are times when various life experiences start to come together in such a way that you and I, at that heart level, begin to question our identity and perhaps even our purpose in life. Now, I know that Google and Siri, they have an immediate answer to just about any question we can ask them these days. But that question of who am I is one that not even they can answer for us. And it's usually found that there's not a shortcut to get to the answer for ourselves. But of course, that doesn't mean that getting to the answer is not possible. So maybe the best way we can begin our search is to ask ourselves why we have forgotten the answer to this question in the first place. And I think Mr. Fillmore, I think he said it quite plainly when he noted that this identifier that he referred to as the I am, that it has the power to look within to the realm of ideas, and it has the power to look without into the realm of form. And many of us, I would imagine, have sometimes looked without in some manner in our lives. Maybe we were raised in ways that encouraged a life philosophy of survival of the fittest, or maybe we were surrounded with the energy where there was a constant seeking of approval and creating an image for all the world to see. Or maybe our goals when we entered into our early adult years were those of acquisition, acquisition of money, of attention, of power, of control. Gail Brenner is a clinical psychologist who authored a book that she titled The End of Self-Help. Now, she offers insights from the book, lots of other articles, guided meditations on her website, which is very simply gailbrenner.com. And she believes that the true self, that sacred self, is not inadequate, it is not damaged, and it does not need fixed in any way. Rather, she writes that the real you is, in her words, pure, shining, precious, whole, undamaged, undefended. And she notes that we don't always get the message of our true undamaged self in our early years. In one way or another, we are given messages that who we are is unacceptable. We get told how we should think, or the way we should feel, or how we should act, all done in order that we please those around us. And as we are pleasing those around us, we are also suppressing our true self, and we are ignoring the longings of our own hearts. And we can therefore feel as though we have lost our way. And when that discontent gets our attention, that's when those words, "Who am I?" will be heard loud and clear. And we find ourselves at Mr. Fillmore's choice point. Do we keep looking without for the answer, or do we turn within? Do we let go of identifying ourself with material images and forms, or do we begin to identify ourselves with those unbounded, divine ideas, the unbounded realm of divine ideas that can be seen when we begin to lift up the veil and peel away all the patterns and the strategies that have kept them at bay, that have kept them from our view and kept them, therefore, out of our minds. So what do we look for when we start taking away the layers, lifting the veils? What brings back our recognition and our remembrance of our true self? Well, Dr. Brenner offered a whole host of telltale signs to look for. She noted that when we have found our way back to our sacred self, we let go of discontent, we let go of confusion and conflict. We are lovingly present with everything, just the way it is. She said, we are once again enthused. We are enthused with creativity again. We are enthused with wonder and awe. We are enthused with life itself. Our personal needs, desires, and wants, they begin to fade in importance. They go down a few notches on the priority list, and instead we find ourselves what she called being effortlessly generous and available. We let go of any conditioned patterns or tendencies that have previously identified who we are and held us down, because now we can clearly see that they no longer serve our greater purpose. There is space now for us to do and to express what we feel called to do. We respond to life's invitations because we are so anxious to share our gifts, our skill sets, our capabilities, all in service to the truth as it appears to us. We may be empty of things like old beliefs and troubles, perhaps that need to control, but we will feel amazingly full and overflowing. And lastly, we know that we may not be living in this remembrance of ourself all the time, but in these moments of it, they resonate in ways that we know that this is the absolute truth of who we are. Now, I think that last point has another gem hidden within it, and that is the importance of stopping and taking time to embrace and to celebrate those moments of remembrance and recognition. Take time, to just to bask in the glory that is you, however that is expressing in that moment. Congratulate yourself for staying the course, for following your heart and being so heartfelt in finding and rediscovering the I am of you once again. Memorialize the experience in some way. Write about it in a journal if you have one, or jot down just a couple of bullet points in a daily diary. You can also just draw or sketch, color, paint a picture that depicts the feelings that you have. Or simply just sit in the silence. Just sit in the silence and bless what has happened. Sit in a silence where there is no mind chatter going on. Sit in a silence where there are no attachments to anything. There are no needs. There is no nothing. Just a clear, open, pure, precious space. Now ready to begin receiving into your mind, into your heart, any number of those unlimited and unbounded divine ideas written about by Charles Fillmore. Divine ideas that they can be like breadcrumbs on a pathway, reminders of what can be, and there to continue leading you back home over and over again. Speaking of home, it wouldn't hurt us to also take a look at that word and how we define it, and maybe how we may wish to redefine it. An interesting take on home was included in an article published by Unity World Headquarters last year as a part of a series they titled Perfect Vision. And the author was not named, so the unnamed author shared a bit about the fascination they had in their life with the story of Laura Ingalls Wilder, the author of the Little House on the Prairie books. And there came a point where they got drawn, in more by the Pa Ingalls character. Someone seen as often being just compelled to move on, compelled to try again, compelled to find a better place for his family. And the author said that urge to search, to look for and to find home seems to live as an iconic idea embedded not only in the American experience, but also in the human one. Life is a quote unquote journey, and we are supposed to enjoy that journey, not concern ourselves with the destination, even while we remind ourselves that there is, quote unquote, no place like home. It seems counterintuitive then to discover that home, as much as we seek its comfort, is not a destination. Home is not a place to return to or come from. Eventually we discover the comfort of home is within. Home is the truth of the divine self that never leaves us. It's a journey, a manifested awakening reflected throughout our lives. Now, this truth about home was made so evident for me on my recent vacation. I spent my time away split between staying on the grounds at Unity World headquarters in Unity Village, Missouri, and then with some dear friends in Kansas, just outside of Overland Park, where I lived before moving here to Traverse City. Now, before the souls of these friends incarnated into their human form, I am convinced, I truly believe that they agreed that a part of their soul contract on this planet would be to serve as friends who would remind me of who I am when I forget or seem to have lost my way. And they've done that many times over the nearly 20 years now that I've known them. But they've also done something else. They have reminded me what home really is. I often tell them when I'm with them that I may be sitting in a house, but what I feel is a home. I feel this in part because of the way they embody Dr. Brenner's words of being effortlessly generous and available. When I arrive, there is always fresh flowers waiting for me in my bedroom. Very often there is also a note or some object that has sentimental value in our relationship sitting on the desk or one of the nightstands. They remember foods that I like and they have them waiting for me. They will have already made reservations at some of our favorite restaurants we used to go to when I lived there. They will even have, sandwich bags packed or snack-sized foods ready for me to take on the road when it's time for me to leave. And of course, after 20 years, they do know me very well. So there is always a bottle of Pinot Grigio chilling in the refrigerator for us to share over dinner and conversation. And while I appreciate and I enjoy all that they give to me, the greater gift is how their giving makes me feel. See, I feel love. I feel kindness. I feel safety and acceptance, compassion and welcome, family. And I also see those qualities being reflected back to me as a reminder that they're in me too. They are in me as well to recognize and to remember and to bask in at times and to share with others. See, I feel home with them, with myself, and with life. My search for home is already mapped. The way is written upon my heart. So said a caption on the photo image that was included with the article from Unity World headquarters. What it didn't go on to say, we'll let Mr. Fillmore explain. Also taken from his Principle of Identity paper. The divine seed, the I am of God, at the center of man's being, that is at the very center of man's mind, has all possibility within it and all the conditions necessary to its perfect fruition all about. But it has freedom of choice. It can lie inert for centuries, like the grains of wheat found in Egyptian tombs, or it can spring into quickening life and bring forth abundantly. The I am has freedom of choice. So when we arrive at that recognition of our true self, the choice is ours as to what we do next. Because our life experiences going forward are going to be what we make them. Will we stay put where we are, lose sight once again of the truth of who we are? Or will we take what we now know? Will we engage in the power of action and follow that map imprinted upon our hearts? We would likely, I think, all agree that engagement would be the optimum choice to make. And our power of divine will can help us get started. You see, will is often confused with willpower. It is also very often interpreted as something that is being imposed upon us by some God in the sky somewhere. willpower often fails. Just think New Year's resolutions and impositions of a deity in the sky. Well, that's often received as very unwelcome and even hard or harsh. Neither of those understandings will ever ignite, let alone inspire, the use of divine will. In Unity's booklet supporting this year's theme of how to stay centered no matter what, Vice President of Unity Prayer Ministry, Reverend Linda Martella Whitsitt, says this. She says, will is the spiritual capacity to choose, to commit, and to be willing. Although choice involves effort, to choose is not to force. There seems to be a sweet spot in the balance between effort and allowing, where will becomes powerful. The power of will is less about exerting control over what is happening and more about choosing our response to what is happening. Instead of trying to exert control over how we would like our lives to be, we can choose our response to all life can be. Remember the signs from Dr. Brenner that will tell you that you have found your true self, that you have found your way home? Remember those? There was excitement and enthusiasm. There was an awakening of creativity and wonder, of generosity and giving and being present. There was a desire, an eager desire, as Mr. Fillmore, wrote, to express in ways that call to you, a feeling of being filled to overflowing to the extent that you just want to share, again, your gifts, your skills, your capacities, and do so in the service to the truth of who you are. Choosing to activate your divine will is finding the sweet spot that Linda referenced. Partnering with this will connect the finding of yourself with your purpose that is true for your life. And the more you put that purpose into expression, the more familiar and safe and comfortable your home becomes. The wonderful poet Maya Angelou wrote an essay titled Home, and she included it in her book, Letter to My Daughter. And she wrote, "We may act sophisticated and worldly, but I believe we feel safest when we go inside ourselves and find home, a place where we belong, and maybe the only place we really do." So if or when you find yourself questioning, who am I? Or if or when you feel lost and unable to find your way home, allow the power of your will to guide you back to your I am, to the Christ presence in you, because it'll always leave its light on for you, and it will always welcome you home. God bless you.